Yeah, we back live in effect. Birds of a feather do flock together. Just gonna come in for a moment, see what's going on. It's about a few more days from I guess it's what they call it? Is it spring training or what they call it period?
Training camp.
Training camp. Okay. And how long did that pretty much last? Do you know?
About about a month and a half.
Okay. And after training camp, that's when they start cutting people, right?
Yeah, they changed the format. They used to do it where they have a series, but now they do it. They just do one massive cut where you go from 90 to I believe 53. So they take it down to just one day and that's it.
Well, what are they going to do when it comes time to going into the preseason games?
They're gonna do like they normally do. You play your preseason, and I guess once all the preseason's done, you have your one total cut for every team.
Okay, so you saying they're not going to go part cutting some. They just going to have one big cut.
That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing it's just gonna be one big cut to where they're just gonna go from 90 to the 53 roster.
Man, it's going to be kind of different because that means they're going to probably be holding everybody till the last minute, or at least what you got almost 40% of the people still on the team, and then all of a sudden, boom, they gone.
Yeah,
Uh,
this could affect a lot of teams because um, you're probably going to have to cut more than that because they're going to be people you're going to put on your practice squad, and then there's also going to be people from another team you may want to get them on your team. So I think it's going to be a big problem for a lot of teams when their season starts because there's going to be a lot of players who are going to pretty much you're going to see get cut, and now either they're not on that team or they're on a new team, and I don't think that's a good idea, but that's what the NFL is doing.
Okay, so that pretty much is going to be meaning even if you cut them guys, it's going to be hard for them to go to another team. Am I right? Especially if somebody got their 53 and they see somebody who they really like, that's going to be left.
That's why I think it could be really hard because you don't know who's going to cut who, and if you fill your roster up with the 53, I don't know if you can get I don't know if you could get somebody now that they're available. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what the NFL is doing.
Okay, well, that's going to be something pretty interesting, and I'll be checking it out. I was seeing something about Lord Brunson wrote on was doing a little video, man, and he was talking about C.J. Garner Johnson was making some complaints, and kind of caught my attention, and I wanted to just look at it for a moment. So I'm going to add that to the screen as I let me see. I'm going to add him to the screen. Let's see. Gonna add him onto the screen, and then we're gonna just hear what he got to say for a moment. And I found it pretty much. Here you go.
Obnoxious. You was running around here with a Meek Mill Dream Chaser chain on, trying to be a part of the city. Dream Chasers is a representation of the city. You ain't know that? Obnoxious. When your car got stolen, half the city was looking for it. I think I even met.
Now, that's what I wanted to talk about for a moment. He was saying that C.J. Gardner Johnson had a Meek Mill chain and was trying to be part of the city. And he says, and I guess he felt like, hey, you should have been a part of the city. You know, we love you here, man. And then he brings up when they stole your car, half of the city was looking for it. Boy, now I started laughing. I'm like, my God, don't you think if the man got his car stolen, he's probably upset at the city for whatever. He probably ain't just, look, I'm happy because I have the city looking for it. he's probably mad because they stole his car. But I just thought that that was kind of just a really hilarious viewpoint from somebody who in the city supports the team and says, "Hey, when they stole your car, half the people helped look for it." I'm like, "Come on, bro." So I find that a little hilarious, man. Lord Brunson and the Philadelphia Eagles. What you say about that?
Well, I think it's just a sad situation of brotherly love. You know, he got his car taken, and yes, people helped you look for it, but that still doesn't stop the fact that someone took your property. You know, so that's always a concern with anybody.
Yeah,
You never get your property taken. That's a serious matter, and regardless of how much he wanted to be part of Philadelphia, which he was, if I'm not mistaken, that happened in the playoffs. So that when your safety's in concern, you know, you got to take your safety as your number one priority. And if you're getting your car stolen outside of the Eagles game, what example is that showing for your security? I even work security at certain games, so if somebody could just come and steal an athlete's car, yeah, I think even Jalen should be concerned. You know, when you got things of this nature going on in this day and age, your safety and your security is the number one issue. Not about trying to show loyalty to dream chasers and Meek Mill. So I really like him as a player, but he's been on other teams as well. So this is not your first. You know, you really have no loyalty to a team because they could trade you or they could cut you. So we see how Philadelphia does. So hey, he made a choice for himself to move on. Well wishes to him.
yeah.
That's my personal take on it. What about yourself?
Well, I kind of think now that you're bringing it up, I mean, if he's at a home game during a playoff, you really think about who comes to a home game at the playoffs time because those tickets are very high. You have to pay for parking. So you got people who are coming who are really looking to steal cars. I mean, that's kind of amazing. And then if it's his CJ's car, I'm sure it's a luxury car, fancy that you know it's not like no other car. So I'm thinking that I just wouldn't think people would be going to a game like that and targeting a car to steal with what's going on. I just can't figure that out, especially at that stadium.
Right. There's something is still missing that Brunson's missing. As much billions of dollars is put inside and outside and security and cameras. This shouldn't be the job of the entire city. You know, you have cameras. You're in Lincoln Financial Field. This is pretty much the place with the most wealth in the championship game. There's basically Philadelphia is the one that dropped the ball. If you ask me, there's no way somebody should get their vehicle stolen on the premises of the NFL stadium with all that. You got regular police, you got undercover police, you got bomb sniffing dogs, you got cameras everywhere. To me,
Yeah.
that's unexcusable.
Well, let me say this too. I remember hearing guys talk, some pro players, and were talking about the games when different athletes had cars, and then they would go take his keys, and they actually took the guy's car and drove off. And that's one guy in particular. But as I listened to their stories, it happened to probably two or three of them. But I was surprised because I had never heard that before. So I'm kind of wondering, was that something might have been a practical joke that they played, like they done it before, but they never came out to the press and corrected it. So hey, look, somebody on the team was playing a practical joke. You know what I'm saying? They do so much. I'm wondering, could that have been something that possibly could have happened and they just didn't deal with it?
That's probably the extent of it because regardless, it would have got more coverage about probably telling the police. So while you're saying, "Hey, who took my car?" and plus they won the game, it was probably a teammate laughing and joking, and
Yeah.
probably just left it at that.
Right, because it just doesn't kind of add up, and I thought about the stories that I've heard, and I said, well, that's kind of fitting in right with them guys, taking a guy a car and he looking for it, he's mad, and then they go bring him, tell him where his car is at. And so with all that, but I just thought it was funny that was his viewpoint. But you know this, and I'm sure Philadelphia, I didn't know they were such a hard city as far as speaking against their players. And I would say this, I don't think they were always like that, because when they had Donovan McNabb and they had other quarterbacks, and they would be right before they won championships or won that championship, I never knew them to be such vile fans, like, hey man, they're gonna just rip into you. I have been used to hearing about the New York market and New Jersey attitudes, but never Philly. But kind of after this, that's when I started to really see it, especially when they drafted Jalen. It really, because I paid more attention, and I think now they're getting that reputation of that they're really hard. They're hardcore fans, and they don't like Dallas and all this other stuff.
Well, it's downright despicable to have that type of mentality, because these are not young adults. These are just full grown adults, and we're seeing the videos and the comments, and I think they're taking the sport of Philadelphia to a place that's similar of the old Raiders, and there's really no place for that. There's videos of fans fighting 49er fans, and it's a whole lot of things that football is just not tolerated for. You spend lots of money to go to these events, and the fans are more violent and vile than even the athletes. So just think that it needs to be stopped, needs to get back to control, because the Eagles, regardless of what was going on in their local region, the national region has never seen anything like this. The way football has been changing, they've been changing the rules. So I'll tell the fans, you need to change your attitude. That type of mentality, a lot of teams are getting away from it. The sheer violence of football is getting away from it. So people just need to grow up and mature. That's the way I look at it. What's your take on it?
Well, I think football itself is probably one of the most violent sports that there are, and people still like it. And to me, the rules are coming in, they're changing, and the teams and everything that's going on. I had more of a problem with the announcers, the bloggers. I'm not gonna say bloggers, but I had a problem with the ESPN announcers, because when I saw them start to attack the character of players, and then they got so bold to the point to where they really started getting on talking about who should be fired, who should be paid a certain amount of money. I mean, I'm like, wait a minute, you're here to call a game or look at the sport. Maybe, you're doing a radio announcement or you're doing television. You're there to inform the fans of the play-by-play and maybe some things around the people's life. But you actually up there talking about, fire him, I'll fire this guy, I'll fire that guy. He don't need to be playing. He ain't worth this. I just thought, man, they are getting into the point where they shouldn't even be involved in this. And it got so bad. I'll say this, when I started this here, it was because Jalen had just come to the team. There was all of this talk about, oh, he ain't this, he ain't that. And I felt like, hey, man, he doesn't have a voice. Every blogger that I saw was against him. That wasn't maybe one guy I saw that kind of went with Jalen for a while, and then he went the other way. So I said, man, let me do birds of a feather. And then you came on with me, and we started, saying, hey, man, look at this guy record. Look how good he is. Not before he played his first game, in the pros. I'm like, do you realize what y'all talking about? Doesn't make sense when you see him going the second to the Heisman, the most winningest record besides the guy from Cleveland. He has in his time period in college, he won more games than pretty much everybody except for that guy. So I'm like, man, what are y'all talking about? He can't throw. He's been throwing. He was getting yards. They pulled him out the game because about the third quarter, the game was over with. This is why he didn't make so many yards. But with all that said, I felt that, hey, man, this is why I came on just to talk about this. And so when we started talking about it, and then what has happened now at ESPN, they're cleaning house. Those guys are getting fired. They're losing their jobs. And the same one that they went into a whole new atmosphere of what I felt they shouldn't have been talking about, now it's come on them. Now tell me what you think about what's going on now.
Well, I think ESPN is they're cleaning house, but I think it's I don't like how they're railroading those announcers. And I'm saying that to say this here. ESPN is the one who I blame because they allowed these platforms to be a show and to build an audience. ESPN did not start off as a argumentative Jerry Springer type of head-to-head clash. ESPN used to be men of dignity and respect. The guys of Chris Berman, I think his name is Mr. Jackson. I think he played football, and you had Stuart Scott. You had what's his name? You have a great other ones, but those were men who pretty much would tell you what was the score, what was the stat, how did they perform, and ESPN allowed it to turn into a argumentative, disagreeing platform, and for years it just grew and grew. And I just believe with the emergence of YouTube and different platforms, money got involved, and so that's the reason they're cutting them. Not because they don't want to cut out the content of garbage. They want to just, it's all about money now. So whoever's making the most money, that's who they're gonna play to at ESPN. So I'm kind of glad ESPN isn't making the money it used to, because they don't have any men with any type of integrity. They report stuff that's not true. They want certain ones fired. So ESPN is just not a good platform anymore as far as the athletes who were just trying to go out and do their job. It's almost turned into TMZ. That's what ESPN is. So that's my whole opinion on it.
Yeah, I kind of feel too, when you look at the way that I saw them broadcasting and still continuing some of them. Here you had guys who you were paying obviously millions of dollars, right? Between the transition from football to basketball to baseball or whatever other sport, you know what I mean? Once the championship was over and you're going into another sport, there's kind of a lull, you know, that what are you going to talk about? And what I saw was that these guys were so hard up for material. This is what they would do. They would start saying, hey, who's your top 20? What? Who's your top 20? And you give them your top 20. Oh, I don't agree with that. They start arguing. Well, who would be your dream team? Who's your top 5? Oh, it's going to be this guy. No, I don't think he should be in it. Then they say, well, who's your Mount Rushmore, your top 4? Well, who's the number 1? You know, it's like they were making up stuff to argue it about that didn't even make no sense and still don't. What does that got to do with what's going on? And like, okay, you got AJ Brown, right? You got what's the guy that played for San Francisco, the wide receiver, the guy that retired, Jerry Rice. What in the world are we arguing about? What Jerry Rice? You think he could hang with them? Really? That man then played. He's retired. They doing something else. Those in the record books talk about relevance. What I'm saying is, the whole, they didn't have material, so they just start these arguments over stuff that didn't matter, and as if that's going to get somebody's attention. And I think what ESPN did was this: why am I going to pay a guy $7 million to argue about nothing when I can go get new faces, pay them $100,000 and pay them for the next 3-4 years? Because you got guys just like me, you, some of them, they just get on and they start broadcasting basically. And some of them have almost the same or better material than those guys do. So they cleaning house. They got 7,000 people they say they're going to get rid of. So I could kind of see it, what you're saying. The bloggers are coming on. We have an opportunity for regular people to get on and talk. And why pay these guys to argue and talk about stuff that doesn't even matter?
Definitely, it's a lot. ESPN has turned into a lot of wasted conversations about competition that's impossible to ever even they will never even face each other.
Yeah.
So it's just all make believe. But ESPN is they're a catalyst. I think if you turn on almost all the sports, and every time you turn around, there's another system that's going to get a lot of people in Las Vegas. So I'm just going to keep them in mind and keep them in prayer, because there's a lot of gambling. And this is what I feel very angry with everyone in sports. People are being hypocrites, such as Shannon Sharp. He made a comment around the fact that he said, "Oh, this athlete's in the NFL and he wagered on the game. He's a dummy. He's a dummy. And how could you do this? And it only could have made you amount of money." And what I try to get him to see is this here. You guys who play sports don't understand. There's all type of manipulation. There's all type of addictions. It doesn't matter if it's playing sports. It don't matter if it's racing the car, partying, gambling, drinking. Everyone needs help. And so I'm looking at this Las Vegas and the way they got the summer league basketball. They're about to have a baseball team, and they got football. You have a lot of young individuals who are going to get into the gambling. And I don't care what anyone says with the athletes. That's always going to be an issue. It's in the DNA. So if the coaches have been busted doing it, the owners have been busted doing it, you just got to be mindful. It is a part of the sport, and ESPN is supporting it.
So you were in the military just like me, and I would say this, that I noticed from the neighborhoods. You go to a neighborhood, you can go to the military, and you can go to jail. And in those institutions, you will find gambling. You will find guys shooting dice in the military service, in little break time, shooting dice, which is an illegal gambling game. And they do that on the boats and ships and in the dormitories. They do it in the jails and in the prisons. They do it on the street corner. So what you're saying is right. You're not going to become a gambler because you're playing in the NFL and got a lot of money. You probably, if you stayed in any neighborhood, went to the military, you're probably going to be gambling. I remember a time they would bring a pool by on a football thing, and you take a square and you bet on that, and then you bet on the side with somebody. So you're absolutely right. You're not going to stop these people from gambling because it's everywhere. If you go to jail and you can gamble, what's going to stop you from doing it? Not just because you're making a lot of money. What you're saying, and you're right. People have done it. I've seen this in my lifetime on different jobs.
And to me, it's a blatant. Instead of me just labeling the person and pointing the finger, I'm saying it's a huge blanket. This is what's being promoted. This is what's being broadcast. Then now they're having these shows about which fantasy player is going to do what and which team will win a division. So I think there was a couple players got suspended, and the season hasn't even got started yet. So
yeah,
I feel bad that it happens, and I think you need to get them some programs to get them some help, because it's a part of everyday society. Even before they're even, like you're saying, it's in the community. Even before you go out there, it's going on.
Right, you're right, man. So with that being said, I just wanted to look at this little tape Brunson did, and it just made me laugh. I said, man, what are you talking about? So anyway, with CJ Gardner, he's gone, he's upset. And maybe that's the fuel he needs, because I believe he really did want to play for the Eagles. And sometimes to keep going, since he's a defensive player, you need that anger to say, hey, I'm going to prove y'all should have paid me. Do you understand what I'm saying? many times guys who's box and fight, they don't have to be mad with you, but they'll stir up something to get them mad so that when they do face you or the Eagles or anybody, that's what he needs to do. I guess to say, hey man, I'm not going to stay in love with Philadelphia and then I got to go play other teams. I'm going to get upset with them. I'm going to go out here and try to beat everybody I can because I want to show them, hey, I'm this defensive guy that they should have kept, you know. Mm-hmm. So part of it, I believe, CJ, is that what he needs to keep his little fuel fire going so that he can continue to play at a higher level. So with that, man, I know we're going to have a lot of good things. Anything you want to bring up or talk about you see in sports on the horizon?
Not as of now. So training camp, that's about it.
Okay. So we want you to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, share with somebody. I'll be taking these videos and breaking them down and slicing them up to put a little bit of parts out at a time. And so hopefully next year we'll be able to come on more frequently and just giving you a viewpoint, our bird's eye view. And I feel like this year I won't be just on here trying to defend Jalen. I have to do my little homework to find out about all this offense, defense, what's going on, so that they can give you a better picture with the other bloggers of the full context of the team as versus me, following the individual.
Okay, wonderful.
All right, with that, we're going to say birds of a feather do fly together. Mind the company you keep. Keep your head to the sky. Goodbye.